this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
Why did I search the internet for answers to my cold sore problem? Now I'm stuck down a rabbit hole filled with images of alarmingly graphic sores in various stages of ooze. I can clear my search history, but I can never unsee that.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. Amazon Health AI gets you the right care, fast. Healthcare just got less painful.
This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. Reese, our content agent, wrote the copy based on our best practices, like mentioning Monday.com 3 times. That was the second. Johnny, our coordination agent, built the timeline and kept everyone aligned. Olivia, our human creative director, stayed in the loop. Because agents are great, but they don't always know when a joke lands. She had one note: tell listeners it only takes minutes to build an agent. So, minutes. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
People at work supported me while I was going through treatment by not treating me like somebody who was going through treatment. Treatment sucks. Cancer sucks. Being engaged with work really helped to, I just knew I was going to beat this thing.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
The Joel Osteen Daily Podcast.
God's plans for you are for good.
Be inspired.
Get ready. God is about to exceed your expectations.
Joel Osteen Daily Podcast.
You are coming out of that dry place into more than enough.
Daily encouragement right when you need it.
There are opportunities in your future bigger than you can imagine.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Daily Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
This is Red Pilled America. I'm angry just like you about what bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci did to us during the pandemic. That's why all week we've been rebroadcasting episodes from the COVID era to remind you to never forget what they did to us and our families. Episodes like this one titled Under the Rug, which was originally broadcast on February 19th, 2021, at a time when shows were being deplatformed for stories like this. And if you want to get Red Pilled America ad-free, go to redpilledamerica.com and click Join in the top of the menu. Now on with the show. The arrival of COVID-19 triggered a panic in America.
This college student stricken with COVID-19 is making an urgent plea. He claims he's being forced to quarantine without basic supplies.
And all across the United States, school buildings sit empty.
As COVID cases surge across the U.S., more than 30 states now require people to wear face masks in public.
Quarantines, violence, death, mandatory masks, food shortages, closed schools, closed churches, businesses shut down, election integrity, and profiteering. Americans have seen it all, but with all the chaos unleashed by the virus, what will be the biggest cost from COVID-19? I'm Patrick Corelchi.
And I'm Adriana Cortez.
And this is Red Pilled America, a storytelling show.
This is not another talk show covering the day's news. We're all about telling stories.
Stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear.
Stories the media mocks. Stories about everyday Americans that the globalists ignore.
You can think of Red Pilled America as audio documentaries, and we promise only one thing: the truth. Welcome to Red Pilled America. The coronavirus unleashed chaos in America, the likes of which we've never seen. But through all the turmoil, what will be COVID-19's biggest cost? To find the answer, we're going to tell the story of Trevor Till, a story the University of Illinois probably doesn't want you to hear.
It was March 12th, 2020, and like the rest of the country, the people of Illinois were about to enter unprecedented times.
I've asked our news stations to take this press conference live because it's important that we have an opportunity to speak directly to the people of Illinois at this moment.
Democrat Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, made an announcement that would bring his state into the national coronavirus panic.
I want to begin tonight by announcing new guidance regarding community, social, and sporting events in the state of Illinois. I've spoken with the owners of all of our major sports teams, and I've asked them to cancel all of their games or play without spectators until May 1st. All of the owners that I spoke with told me that they completely understood and were more than willing to comply with this guidance. Additionally, I'm asking that all community events that organizers expect will attract 250 or more people be canceled or postponed until May 1st. This includes personal and social events. I'm mandating that events of 1,000 or more people be canceled or postponed immediately. With regard to schools here in Chicago and around the state, we are not closing our schools, but we are monitoring the situation on a day-to-day basis.
But in just 24 hours, that monitoring changed his policy.
Breaking news just a short time ago, the governor of Illinois announcing all schools in Illinois starting Tuesday will be closed. Those closures will last until March 30th at the earliest. Parents are now scrambling to figure out plans for the state's 2 million students.
And this was a much different message than we heard from him yesterday and even from the mayor this morning, both of them saying they would not be closing schools in Illinois. But individual districts have made those decisions. And the governor said after looking at new evidence and what has been happening around the world that he wanted to be precautious and take these measures to save lives. The governor saying he wants to flatten the curve to lessen the impact and alleviate the burden on the healthcare system to try to slow the spread of this disease. He is encouraging social distancing and said he was worried about students bringing the virus home to their parents and grandparents and also teachers and other staff in the buildings being exposed to this as well.
Governor Pritzker and his maskless team made a plea to the people of Illinois.
Please, this weekend, if you can, stay home. If you are able to telework, do so. If you don't have to travel, don't. This isn't forever. This is a sacrifice in the short term to help our hospitals, our healthcare workers, our testing laboratories, and our vulnerable and elderly residents.
And he does hope that this 2-week school closure will be all that it takes. We did ask if this could go into the month of April, and he did not answer that question directly, saying they are taking this one day at a time. Lastly, he says he would rather be criticized for doing too much than doing too little.
Illinois was not alone. States all across America began taking the monumental step of closing down their schools. It was a big hit to high school seniors, especially students like Trevor Till.
He was in so many clubs and so involved in everything in school.
That's Trevor's mom, Lisa Moore.
He was the class president. He was the president of National Honor Society. He was an Illinois State Scholar. He was the captain of cross team. He was a pole vaulter. He was the drum major. He played the trombone. He was in choir. He was the president of the Spanish club. He was in drama club. He was the lead of the play in the fall. And then he was the male lead in the musical.
Trevor's high school was in Seneca, Illinois, a small town of roughly 2,500 people about 70 miles southwest of Chicago. At the time Illinois schools were shut down, Trevor was just coming off the lead role in his school's musical rendition of The Music Man, the 1957 Tony Award-winning Broadway musical.
76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand. They were followed by rows and rows of the finest virtuosos.
He was the Music Man. He was awesome.
76 trombones.
Trevor was an extrovert that loved school. It was his life force. So when Seneca High School got shut down, he was hoping it was just for a couple of days, or maybe a few weeks. Again, Trevor's mom, Lisa.
When we first came home and we didn't know what was happening in the very beginning, it was just going to be, okay, we're home for a week or 2 weeks.
But then, Illinois Governor Pritzker did what so many of his peers did across the country.
To avoid the loss of potentially tens of thousands of lives, we must enact an immediate stay-at-home order for the state of Illinois. So that is the action that I am announcing today. Left unchecked, cases in Illinois will rise rapidly. Hospital systems will be overwhelmed. Protective equipment will become scarce. And we will not have enough healthcare workers or hospital beds or ventilators for the overwhelming influx of sick patients. I fully recognize that in some cases, I am choosing between saving people's lives and saving people's livelihoods. But ultimately, you can't have a livelihood if you don't have your life. Therefore, starting tomorrow evening, Saturday, March 21st at 5 p.m., until the end of April 7th, all our residents will be subject to a stay-at-home order.
At the time, schools were telling student athletes to continue their training.
They kept saying, well, keep running, you guys, keep working out at home and, keep going, because as soon as we get back, we're going to be starting, track season and everything, and baseball and, all the fall or spring sports.
By the end of April 2020, it was becoming very clear that the coronavirus was not as deadly as the experts predicted, especially for children and young adults.
You may remember what they first told us back in February and March. They said, we have to take radical steps in order to, quote, flatten the curve. Well, 6 weeks later, we're happy to say that curve has been flattened, but it's likely not because of the lockdowns. The virus just isn't nearly as deadly as we thought it was. All of us, including on this show, everybody thought it was. But it turned out not to be. Hospitals never collapsed. Outside of a tiny number of places, they never came close to collapsing, at least not from an influx of infected patients. Instead, something remarkable happened, something amazing, really without parallel in American history. The opposite happened. Thanks to the lockdowns, hospitals have begun to collapse. Why? From a lack of patients.
Yet even with the positive data coming in, governors were expanding their shutdown orders.
The major news from Governor Pritzker this afternoon is a month-long extension to the stay-at-home order for Illinois.
It was expected, and now it's official. The governor extending the stay-at-home order until May 30th.
Trevor's high school closure went from 2 weeks to a few months.
His classes were on Zoom, and he hated it because, like I said, he was ultra involved and liked to be in class and had a great rapport with his teachers. And he's like, Mom, this just stinks, just doing all his work from home in his bedroom and a computer. He hated it. He's like, I feel lost. My life's there, at high school, and kept trying to encourage him and kept saying, well, we don't know how long it's going to be. Hopefully you'll get to go back. And then it just dragged on, obviously, longer and longer. And then it was like prom looked like it was going to maybe happen like late May, and then that got canceled. So that was a big bummer for him. And we didn't know what was going to happen with graduation.
Trevor eventually did have a ceremony, a modified one. Only his parents were able to attend. No extended family or siblings. He had 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters. Missing out on almost every big senior moment must have been an enormous downer for millions of high school and college students. It was for Trevor, and he had a hard time keeping busy.
In April, when I saw that there was going to be no track season for sure, and I saw Trevor, I knew he was sad about everything. I suggested, and his dad did too, that he got a job, something to do to keep him busy because he was such a busy kid. So he did get a job at Menards, which is like a Lowe's or a Home Depot.
He started the job in April 2020.
And so that helped, because he was out again amongst people, and mostly younger people worked in the garden center. So he made some new friends there too.
However, Trevor was still missing the camaraderie of those final days of high school. But there was a light at the end of the tunnel: college. He was an honor student, so going off to higher education was a foregone conclusion. Trevor eyed the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It was a much larger school than he was used to. His graduating class at Seneca High had about 100 people. U of I typically has around 50,000 students, 7,500 of which are freshmen. Trevor may have been down about high school, but at least he'd have the college experience on the horizon.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
I can't stop scratching my downtown. Yeah, but I'm not itching to go downtown and tell a receptionist I'm here to talk about my downtown. Some things you'd rather type than say out loud.
There's no question too embarrassing for Amazon Health AI. Chat your symptoms and get virtual care 24/7. Healthcare just got less painful.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. The agents wrote the copy and managed the timelines, while our human creative director made sure it all made sense. Easy. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Though the headlines may change, the threats facing Israel remain. And while much of the world has moved on to the next story, Israeli families continue living with the reality of terrorism, uncertainty, and recovery. Communities remain on alert. Parents still think twice before sending their children to school. Families continue rebuilding their lives, knowing the next siren could come without warning. As Christians, we are all called to stand with God's children in times of need. And that's why the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews remains on the ground in the Holy Land each and every day, providing life-saving aid and food for struggling families, emergency assistance, bomb shelters, and critical support for those impacted by war. Now, even after the cameras leave and the headlines fade, the fellowship remains committed to Israel's most vulnerable. I want you to join the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews in praying for the people of Israel, for protection, for strength, and for lasting peace. Together, we can remind God's people that they're not alone. So stand with Israel in prayer today by visiting prayifcj.org. That's prayifcj.org.
Welcome back to Red Pilled America. So Trevor Till had just experienced the shutdowns during the final months of his senior year. He missed out on sports, plays, and just the general camaraderie of high school. But there was a light at the end of the tunnel. He'd gotten into the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and they were promoting normalcy at the college. Then, in mid-May 2020, news hit about a college system in California.
We've learned the chancellor for the California State University system announced today that, at least in the minimum, the vast majority of in-person classes for the fall semester have been canceled. The schools will be shifting their focus to online courses in the wake of the pandemic.
Students attending Cal State schools likely won't see the inside of a classroom until 2021. The California State University system is the first group of schools in the nation to move nearly all classes online this fall in response to COVID-19.
The Cal State University chancellor gave his rationale.
We got to this decision because the health and well-being of our students and employees is the most important factor in any decision that we make.
With almost 500,000 students, California State University is the largest four-year university system in America. Their decision carried weight in academic circles.
And Tom, let's go back to California. We mentioned the country's largest public university system, Cal State, has decided not to reopen campus and just move classes online this fall. Yeah. What do you think that means, in terms of a signal for other universities around the country?
Well, it certainly could be a precedent. The Cal State system, as you know, is 500,000 people, 23 campuses. It says it's been losing hundreds of millions of dollars because students are not on campus. Universities up and down are struggling with when they should reopen and how good of an education are they providing if it's online.
Like millions of other college students, Trevor was wondering how his target college, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, was going to handle the coming school year.
He wanted a big school. He wanted a bigger school, coming from a smaller high school. He just thought he wanted something bigger. He wanted to be in marching band. That was one of the things. And U of I had a good marching band. And it was only 2 hours from home. As we waited closer and closer, we weren't even sure if he was going to go, if they were going to open the dorms, what they were going to do.
Then came a glimmer of hope.
U of I is planning to hold in-person classes this fall at the Champaign-Urbana campus. It will also allow students to live on campus with restrictions. The school says it will follow state guidelines.
In mid-June 2020, the University of Illinois announced that its Urbana-Champaign campuses were going to open. The chancellor of the school system stated, quote, "Fall 2020 will be an on-campus semester with as much in-person instruction and residential occupancy as restrictions of space, health, and safety allow." End quote. UIUC, as it's called, was bucking the trend of many other large universities. The college aggressively promoted the 2020 school year and began hyping the possibilities. It highlighted the fact that 2 alumni of the school started YouTube. It announced the Fighting Illini football season would continue. It posted video tours of the majestic campus. An in-person college experience at the biggest university in the state? For Trevor Till, it was just what the doctor ordered.
And I told him, you don't have to go. You can stay home. His dad told him to. We can figure something. No, I want to go. I want the college experience. I want to do it.
Trevor was an extrovert honor student, yearning for the education and companionship that UIUC was offering. He applied to the university and got in. So in late August 2020, his mother Lisa traveled with him to his dorm room, and it was understandably a proud but emotional day for his mother. Her 5th child was leaving the nest and entering the big, cruel world on his own.
So I moved him into his dorm August 21st. And, we saw his roommate's name, and he was from India. And I said, I bet he's not going to be able to come. And he didn't.
It was a very subtle sign for what was to come. The day before the deadline to cancel registration at UIUC, the chancellor of the school made a promise to the incoming freshmen.
On behalf of our faculty, students, and staff, welcome. I am Robert Jones, and I'm the chancellor here at Illinois. But for each of you, what that really means is that I am responsible for ensuring you had the kind of educational experience that we promised when we invited you to join us.
But when school started on August 24th, the campus experience didn't really align with what the school was pitching.
Everybody obviously wore masks. They discouraged the kids to hang out together. Their tables for eating were outside until it was like 45 degrees in the morning, and then they finally moved them inside. So there was no big, clubs on the quad day, usually in college where you walk around and see all the clubs, and none of that existed that year, this past year. So it was difficult. I kept asking him, and he said it was hard for him to find clubs and find this and find that. So, but he did join a few things. But again, it was all Zoom meetings, and he kept saying it's just not the same thing. And I know, honey, just hopefully it's going to open up soon. More things are going to open up soon.
Trevor hoped that maybe his dorm meetings would be an opportunity to connect with other people.
And again, they were Zoom. So there was no real chance to make any relationships or, make new friends. He only had 2 classes in person, and those were his history classes. And because of his AP and college credits from high school, he was like mostly juniors and seniors were in his class. So he said, Mom, we're wearing masks. We're sitting 6 feet apart. People kind of like say, hey, or stuff like that. He said, but the older kids all know each other, so it's not like it's easy to, make friends, when I'm the new guy and everything. And he said, I try, I say, hey, and hi, but, it was just, there was nothing for fostering new relationships at all.
It was not at all what Trevor was expecting, and it didn't sound like what UIUC's chancellor had promised incoming students either. The chancellor was calling the university's model a hybrid, a mixture of both in-person and online instruction. But the Chronicle of Higher Education didn't agree. It categorized them as primarily online. If most of the classes and even dorm meetings were online, group gatherings and extracurricular activities were discouraged, and many of the things that students would expect of campus life were not offered, why would the university even have students come back to the campus at all? Well, the answer could be that the school was embarking on a massive experiment.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
I can't stop scratching my downtown. Yeah, but I'm not itching to go downtown and tell a receptionist I'm here to talk about my downtown. Some things you'd rather type than say out loud.
There's no question too embarrassing for Amazon Health AI. Chat your symptoms and get virtual care 24/7. Healthcare just got less painful.
Hey, before your Q3 call, I've got the campaign brief ready, built from last quarter's data and the competitive landscape.
Great. Did you include the differentiation angle the CMO asked for?
Already in there. 3 angles no competitors using right now. Just need your approval.
Approved. Thanks. Oh, agents, where would we be without you?
Somewhere with a lot more tabs open.
Create your first Monday agent in minutes at monday.com.
Though the headlines may change, the threats facing Israel remain. And while much of the world has moved on to the next story, Israeli families continue living with the reality of terrorism, uncertainty, and recovery. Communities remain on alert. Parents still think twice before sending their children to school. Families continue rebuilding their lives, knowing the next siren could come without warning. As Christians, we are all called to stand with God's children in times of need. And that's why the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews remains on the ground in the Holy Land each and every day, providing life-saving aid and food for struggling families, emergency assistance, bomb shelters, and critical support for those impacted by war. Now, even after the cameras leave and the headlines fade, the fellowship remains committed to Israel's most vulnerable. I want you to join the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews in praying for the people of Israel, for protection, for strength, and for lasting peace. Together, we can remind God's people that they're not alone. So stand with Israel in prayer today by visiting prayifcj.org. That's prayifcj.org.
I think when you're diagnosed with cancer, you crave a semblance of normalcy and control, and so work allowed me to be me. So I think it's really important that companies stay flexible. Cancer and a diagnosis can be all-consuming, but it doesn't have to be.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
As the coronavirus panic began sweeping across America, a small group of scientists at UIUC were tasked with a challenge.
As mentioned, I was asked back in March to build a team to try to stand up and strategically deploy scalable COVID-19 testing as part of our university's comprehensive effort to reopen as safely as possible.
That's Martin D. Burke, a professor of chemistry at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
One of the first things I realized is this all about safety. Safety to empower our community. And so we called it our SHIELD effort to reflect that focus on safety as our very first priority. The second thing that we quickly realized is that testing was going to be critically important, but testing is not a silver bullet. It was going to require a comprehensive program to wrap around that testing capability, to figure out who to test and how often, and to rapidly communicate the results of those tests in a way that can help people get isolated very quickly and get the contact tracing started fast so that we could eliminate the spread of the virus.
Dr. Burke said that the coronavirus nasal swab tests at the time were problematic.
This standard process is too slow, it's too expensive, and it has too many supply chain bottlenecks in order to be able to do fast and frequent testing on scale.
So he and his team came up with a way to test saliva for COVID-19 infection.
And so my colleague, Dr. Hergenrother, led an extraordinary team of students and postdocs at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign to go after a test that was directly from saliva to the PCR test, and thereby cut out the time, cost, and supply chain bottlenecks that were limiting the capacity for fast and frequent testing on scale.
To do this, they converted their veterinarian labs into COVID testing facilities.
This allowed us to then, on our own campus, perform these tests in a way that allows us to get the results back in a fast and frequent manner.
Besides potentially speeding up COVID detection on campus, if they could prove their testing process could be scaled to large populations, the venture could also be lucrative, very lucrative. Think about it. In Illinois alone, there are roughly 3 million people enrolled in K-12 public schools, public universities, and long-term care facilities. If each test costs, say, $20, then each time you test that group of people, it brings in $60 million. And if it rolled out nationally, the revenue potential could be mind-boggling. In July, the SHIELD team performed a trial run, testing the saliva of volunteer graduate students and university staff. However, to prove their test was really scalable, to meet the demands of an entire state or more, a much bigger trial run would need to be undertaken to test the limits of their procedure. As chance would have it, the SHIELD team had access to a larger population, the entire student body of UIUC. With most colleges shifting to online for the coming school year, many were wondering how UIUC was planning on bringing kids back to the university safely. With just 3 weeks before the first day of school, the Associate Chancellor of UIUC announced the university's plan.
We've offered students the option. You can either come back to campus if you want. If you come back to campus, though, you have to agree to earn that privilege. So there are things that we're asking students to do. The obvious ones about wearing facial coverings and observing social distancing. And one we announced today is that you need to be willing to undergo testing for COVID twice a week throughout the semester.
It was an ambitious testing schedule, and one using a process not yet approved by the FDA. But with just 4 days before the school was to start, the governor of Illinois called a presser.
The University of Illinois has just today received emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration to run their saliva-based COVID-19 test at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign lab. This news puts the University of Illinois and the entire state of Illinois on the cutting edge of testing innovation as a national player. And let me just say to President Killeen, the state of Illinois looks forward to being your biggest customer. If ongoing research continues to yield positive results, this has potentially game-changing implications for our statewide testing complex as well as for testing on a national level. We're already working to deploy this to more public universities across the state over the next weeks and months and exploring rolling this out to do testing potentially for K-12 schools and even more testing at our long-term care facilities as well. The potential here is enormous.
On that same day, the university published a news release with the headline reading, quote, Illinois rapid saliva test for COVID-19 now operating under FDA emergency use authorization, end quote. The media ate up the announcement.
Governor J.B. Pritzker tells what he's calling a game-changing saliva-based COVID-19 test developed at the University of Illinois. A person spits into a test tube and results are back in hours.
A potential game-changing development in the war on COVID-19, a breakthrough saliva test developed at the U of I that just won approval from the FDA.
The idea here is they heat up saliva and they're able to get test results in hours, not days. It costs very little, and the opportunity and potential, doctors say, is sky high.
The test developed by scientists at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, winning FDA emergency use approval. It's currently being utilized on the U of I campus, where students are returning for the fall semester this week. Results can be accessed on an app that can then be shown at campus events and establishments that require it.
Could this FDA-authorized test be the answer to all schools reopening? The SHIELD team organized business entities to prepare to sell the test not only within the state of Illinois, but also to other states and even internationally. After school opened on August 24th, media interest in the development skyrocketed.
Joining us now is the president of the University of Illinois system. Mr. Killeen, nice to have you with us. Let's talk testing here because you guys came up with your own test. I think school began earlier this week. How is it going? And tell me about how many people you are testing.
We've tested to date 121,000 individuals. We're testing everybody on our campus at Illinois Urbana-Champaign twice a week, and it's going really well. We don't like this virus. We want to crush it. And that's what we're doing, and we're doing it at massive scale. The test is FDA approved through emergency use authorization in a bridging capacity. So it's very accurate.
There are a lot of colleges and universities watching you closely.
The University of Illinois conducts up to 20,000 tests a day. That's 2% of all COVID tests done nationwide. Students are tested at least twice a week, with results coming in as fast as 5 hours.
The university now had an FDA-approved test that was being administered at least twice a week to its on-campus students. But there were some problems that would lead to a tragic result.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
I can't stop scratching my downtown. Yeah, but I'm not itching to go downtown and tell a receptionist I'm here to talk about my downtown. Some things you'd rather type than say out loud.
There's no question too embarrassing for Amazon Health AI. Chat your symptoms and get virtual care 24/7. Healthcare just got less painful.
This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. Reese, our content agent, wrote the copy based on our best practices, like mentioning Monday.com 3 times. That was the second. Johnny, our coordination agent, built the timeline and kept everyone aligned. Olivia, our human creative director, stayed in the loop. Because agents are great, but they don't always know when a joke lands. She had one note: tell listeners it only takes minutes to build an agent. So, minutes. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Though the headlines may change, the threats facing Israel remain. And while much of the world has moved on to the next story, Israeli families continue living with the reality of terrorism, uncertainty, and recovery. Communities remain on alert. Parents still think twice before sending their children to school. Families continue rebuilding their lives, knowing the next siren could come without warning. As Christians, we are all called to stand with God's children in times of need. And that's why the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews remains on the ground in the Holy Land each and every day, providing life-saving aid and food for struggling families, emergency assistance, bomb shelters, and critical support for those impacted by war. Now, even after the cameras leave and the headlines fade, the fellowship remains committed to Israel's most vulnerable. I want you to join the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews in praying for the people of Israel, for protection, for strength, and for lasting peace. Together, we can remind God's people that they're not alone. So stand with Israel in prayer today by visiting PrayIFCJ.org. That's PrayIFCJ.org.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours, and then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
Do you want to hear Red Pilled America stories ad-free? Then become a Backstage subscriber. Just log on to redpilledamerica.com and click Join in the top menu. Join today and help us save America one story at a time.
Welcome back to Red Pilled America. So by the beginning of the 2020 school year, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign had an FDA-approved COVID-19 test that was being administered at least twice a week to its on-campus students. But there were some problems. First, even with all of this testing, it wasn't really opening things up for the students to have more in-person classes, or just the freedom to live the campus life that many were expecting. Trevor complained about this to his mother, Lisa.
U of I COVID tested the kids 2 to 3 times a week, every week. So they knew if and when anyone was sick. But that didn't do anything. That didn't open anything up. That didn't give them any more freedoms. I don't even understand the point of all that testing then. It was ridiculous.
But there was a point. You see, the students could kind of be thought of as guinea pigs. In a sense, they were being used to validate the university's saliva test, because as it would be later revealed, it wasn't really FDA approved. As we mentioned, just a few days before UIUC opened, Illinois Governor Pritzker stated that the school's saliva test was being used under authorization from the FDA.
The University of Illinois has just today received emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration.
And he wasn't the only one that was saying that. The university's president made the same claim.
The test is FDA approved through emergency use authorization in a bridging capacity.
And so did the university's chancellor.
I think we all would agree that the FDA emergency use authorization is extremely exciting.
The problem was, it wasn't true. The FDA had not authorized their saliva test. About a month after the semester started, someone at the University of Illinois stealthily changed the original news release about the school's saliva test, removing from the headline that it was being administered under an FDA emergency use authorization. It wasn't long before the change quietly leaked into the local press.
Well, U of I thought they were originally connected to Yale University through a bridge study, a school that does have emergency use FDA approval. So they thought their test was FDA approved, but that isn't the case. The FDA reminded them their type of testing is referred to as a laboratory developed test. This doesn't change how the U of I tests, but means the school won't be able to roll it out to Champaign-Urbana until they get full FDA approval. The U of I says even though there was a mix-up, they have always followed guidance.
Sometime in September 2020, the FDA called the university and asked them to stop using terms suggesting that their saliva test was FDA approved, because it wasn't. In a written statement, the FDA spokesperson stated, quote, "The University of Illinois is not authorized under an umbrella emergency use authorization, and they have not had an emergency use authorization," end quote. The test that was credited for allowing UIUC students to attend in-person classes wasn't FDA approved. As the revelation was quietly making its way into local news, Lisa Moore came to visit her son, Trevor.
I was there October 4th and took him out to dinner and, spent time with him and brought him some pajama pants and sweats because he was, in the morning it's cold going to breakfast and everything.
Apparently, the dorm set up breakfast outside to reduce COVID-19 spread.
And so I saw him on October 4th, and he seemed like himself.
As was their normal routine, they'd talk and text throughout the week. She'd tell him she loved him and she was proud of him. About 2 weeks after her visit, they spoke on a Sunday night.
So I told him I'd see him on the 30th, and then I told him, well, when you come home for Thanksgiving, you got to bring everything because they're closing the dorms until January 22nd. Okay, Mom. He said, yeah, that sounds good. And I said, maybe we can take a ride down to Florida while you're home and see Pa. Yeah, that would be good. I said, maybe you could, go back to Menards for a month, make some extra money and, something to do too, see your friends. He's like, yeah. I said, just normal. And then that was it. That was the last time anyone spoke to him. He checked into his dorm at 10 after 10 on Sunday night.
Over the next couple of days, Lisa texted Trevor like a mother does, cheering him on. He didn't respond, which wasn't abnormal.
But his dad, I guess, had tried to call him, and then he called me or texted me and asked me if there was something wrong with Trevor's phone. And I said, not that I'm aware of, no. And so he went down there because he lived an hour away and did a well-being check, and they found him gone in his room.
Trevor had hung himself. The young man was so isolated at the University of Illinois, he had such limited contact with anyone on campus, that he was likely hanging there lifeless, alone in his dorm room for 2.5 days. Lisa said detectives told her that after reviewing his phone and computer, Trevor's last recorded activity was around 1 a.m. early Monday morning, a few hours after they'd talked. It took his father to come looking for him to find Trevor in this unspeakable state. The dormitory's resident advisor, or RA for short, lived just 2 doors down.
He didn't even see the RA. They're the person that's supposed to watch over everybody's well-being. When I was in college, we had floor meetings every week, and I thought it was for social, but now as an adult, I realized it was well-being checks for the RAs to, make sure everyone was adjusting, doing okay, being away from home, and looking for any signs or symptoms of anything. Well, how do you do that on a Zoom meeting when you haven't probably even met most of these kids in person? And when you did, it was wearing a mask, so you can't really see facial expressions. And I'm not blaming the RA, but I just don't think that they were well equipped. The school probably shouldn't have opened the dorms.
Before Trevor took his life, his mother says he was desperately trying to make a connection with someone, anyone on campus.
October 4th, he did tell me that he had volunteered to be the president of his dorm. He did tell me that. So he was trying to do things. And I said, well, honey, that's great. I said, so do you get to meet in person then with the officers? No, at Zoom. He said, but, at least it's more people to meet and talk to. And he said, yeah, we've met once or twice now. We're going to, have some good ideas for the dorm and activities if we can do these things. It's odd. So he was trying. He was trying.
Trevor's family was allowed to give him a burial service, a real privilege in this godforsaken time. His family and hundreds of his friends poured into the service to pay their respects. Lisa counted kids from about 12 high schools from around her area that made it to Trevor's funeral. One young man who only met her son once during a weekend activity drove 5 hours to be there.
Console us in mourning, so that we may live in confidence and hope until by your call we are gathered to our heavenly home in the company of all your saints in light. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen.
The Daily Illini, the university's student newspaper, wrote nothing about Trevor's death on their website. We reached out to the school and the student body president for comment on this story. They didn't respond.
After it happened, my older son had corresponded for me with the school and asked for the portion of the tuition that I paid for back, and they just gave me a prorated amount back.
Tuition, room, and board for Illinois residents could run about $34,000 a year.
I literally had to get very ugly on an email in December to one of the higher up chancellors and said it was rude, and told them I hope that they could sleep at night, because when I try to sleep, I see my son hanging in your dorm. And they finally decided to release the rest of the funds. But they did not go out of their way. I did receive two cards from his history professors, and honestly, I haven't even read them yet. I have a hard time reading things that people write to me about Trevor right now, because it just breaks my heart. But otherwise, I haven't heard very much from U of I at all. They brushed it under the rug.
What the school was not sweeping under the rug, however, was the benefits of its saliva test.
1 in 50 COVID-19 tests in America happens at the University of Illinois every day. I want to be very clear here. Not 1 in 50 tests on college campuses in America. 1 in 50 tests in America happens at the university.
We have not had a student hospitalized, and of course that means there have been no student deaths.
Which leads us back to the question, what will be the biggest cost from COVID-19? The answer is our kids' future. For a solid year, our leaders did just about anything they saw fit to keep us safe. They took away our right to assemble, our right to free speech, our right to worship, our right to decide for ourselves. They trampled all over our God-given rights, and they did it all while our kids were watching. That became their new norm, and it was just too much for some to take. There's a hidden cost to safety. Sometimes it's death. Our leaders have scarred our youth and in the process, America's future, the lengths of which we're just beginning to grasp. The drive to keep us safe has left a trail of bodies on the road. and it looks as if one of them was Trevor Till. By almost every measure, this was a young man with a bright future ahead of him. But the isolation at a university that sold itself as the campus life students expected appears to have been the tipping point. And there's been many others that couldn't take the isolation as well.
4 days before his 13th birthday, Brad and April Hunstable's son, Hayden, died by suicide.
Last Friday, Spencer Smith left a note for his parents, writing about feeling locked in the house. Then he took his own life. He was just 16 years old.
Let's pray for these families and vow to never let our leaders do this again, because they got a taste of unbridled power, and there's little doubt they'll try to use it again.
We should expect that over the next couple of weeks, we are going to see an uptick in cases, and hopefully there's enough background immunity so that we don't wind up with a lot of hospitalization.
Red Pilled America is an iHeartRadio original podcast. It's owned and produced by Patrick Horelchi and me, Adriana Cortez of Informed Ventures. Now you can get ad-free access to our entire archive of episodes by becoming a Backstage subscriber. To subscribe, visit redpilledamerica.com and click Join in the top menu. Thanks for listening.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
The Joel Osteen Daily Podcast.
God's plans for you are for good.
Be inspired.
Get ready. God is about to exceed your expectations.
Joel Osteen Daily Podcast.
You are coming out of that dry place into more than enough.
Daily encouragement right when you need it.
There are opportunities in your future bigger than you can imagine.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Daily Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. At Navy Federal, they want you to know that if you need a positive sign towards achieving your goal of home ownership, this is it. Because even though today's housing market may seem discouraging, the Home Buyer's Choice Loan offers members down payment options as low as 0% with no required private mortgage insurance. Look for your sign today. Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender. Terms and conditions apply. Loan subject to approval and eligibility requirements. Learn more at NavyFederal.org/0down. Brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union.